Hello, everybody.
Hello.
And welcome to a very special episode of Let's Talk About Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. Specifically the television series, not the movie and not the graphic novels. But
the movie may come up a little.
Well, the movie may come up a little. But for the moment purposes, the TV show with Sarah Michelle Gellar and etc., etc. Why? Because this might seem a little bit random on my channel for it to just suddenly pop up, but hopefully there's some of my viewers out there who are big Buffy fans like I am.
I know there are. They wrote to me.
Oh, good. Why are we talking about Buffy today, Colin?
As an example of the importance of giving things multiple chances or tries, because basically, back, I guess in 2004 or 3, no, right around after it aired, I've been hearing all these things about Buffy, and, you know, by its title, it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It seems a little kooky, but people kept recommending it, so when I was in England, I tried the first season, and it was just too, I don't know, seemingly too campy or vampy for me, and that I have this bias somehow against vampires, and like, it just seems a little silly for me. So I tried, but I was like, all right, whatever. And then, but Hark has been great in, trying a bunch of things, and we've been enjoying a bunch of shows together. And then person after person kept, saying it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And so I went through from this Paper Team podcast, which if anyone happens to listen to Paper Team, that's cool. It's basically a podcast about TV writing. They were going through a ranking of like the best episodes. They were featuring commentary on them. And so it's like, well, I'll just go and look at whatever, the best episodes were. And so I just tried to find them online, and it was a lot of context, but I figured I'd be able to get it. And the problem is that it was too good. And so I was watching, like, to be fair, I was sampling some of the best ones, but I was watching, like, I started in order it would make sense with Innocence, and then Becoming, and then I'm like, wait, this is good. Let me just see the episode before, or maybe the one before that, or like in between. And then so for like, but I after watching one or two of the good ones, I'm like, well, I have to at least see the others with Hark. So then for about, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks, I was going through this crazy Memento-like journey where I was seeing like 3 episodes at once, then going back to like 5 episodes ahead. I was just flip-flopping, and so at a certain point I'm like, you know what? I'm seeing this whole thing. Like, this is stupid. It was kind of fun to like go back and forth in all these weird like jigsaw puzzle of plot points. But then I stabilized, and then I'm like, you know what? We're in this for the long haul. So yeah.
He ended up binge watching all 7 seasons for the most part. You already saw season 1.
Yeah.
But he binge watched all of the seasons. So, by the way, if any of you guys have not seen the episodes and are trying, this is we're going to be talking spoilers, like crazy spoilers. So this is just for the people who hopefully have seen all of the series or enough that you don't care about spoilers. So he watched all of the episodes, and we together watched the top 10 or something.
Yeah, and
the top 10 together.
Yeah.
But Colin was seeing them in order in such a way that by the time it was time for us to watch one of the top 10 episodes together, he was up to date. So, to give you a little bit of history about myself, I got into Buffy also relatively late because I didn't start watching any of Buffy. I mean, I was aware of the show, obviously, and I heard it was really popular, but same with Colin, while it was running, I thought the concept sounded a little weird to me, and I do like supernatural things, but I just never got into it until I think a year or 2 years after the series ended, 2 years after season 7 had been completed. My boss, basically at my first job, was just raving about it randomly, and he, first of all, like, if you met my boss personality-wise, I would not have really pegged him as someone who was a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He just didn't have that persona at all. And so the fact that he was raving about it and he told me I needed to watch it got me intrigued. So I started watching the pilot, got really hooked on the pilot, watched the second episode and the third episode, and eventually I also binged it, like the entire 7 series in about a month, like over Christmas break, basically. So I got it to be a very, very quick fan of it when it was over, but that was back like in the mid 2000s, and then Colin just recently started watching them. So he wanted to ask, hey, we haven't done a video together, and that's true. Our son is currently not here because
a big bad got him.
No, not a big bad. A very good, big good
yes,
person. A big good. He just celebrated his birthday, and so he actually is with, well, his family in New York right now. And so we figured our kid's not here, we haven't done a video in a while, and we thought that maybe there would be some of you viewers out there who are fans who might be interested in talking about it, especially someone who just saw the show. So I have to preface this by telling everyone that I only saw the 10 episodes that we saw together. So there's a lot of stuff that I probably forgot, a lot of details I probably forgot, so I'm going to lean on Colin to fill me in on those details. But for the most part, I'm just going to let Colin drive this. So what do you want to talk about? Because we saw everything.
As a teacher, I did actually try to create like a somewhat of a framework, but before I do, Hark said interesting things that I'm like, just going to write them down. Okay, 3 points based on what Hark said. One, spoilers, and I think in every of these reviews I've ever had, I mention AV Club, and if you guys, whatever TV show series that you like, if you Google AV Club afterward, both the reviews and the comment section sometimes get a bad rap, but like, it's just this literate, thoughtful, like, caring, like sometimes snarky, but actually caring about how other people actually take in the show. That's what the community is in AV Club. And what I was stunned by in going through the Buffy series is it would make all the sense in the world for the comment section to be spoiler minefields, but they weren't, because people were so meticulous about like little spoiler tags, and so it was great to be able to go through and have, it's obviously better to have the experience with Hark and like us directly, but be able to have a community a decade later and react in the moment to people that were new, but people who were experts were able to do it. So I mean, I think it speaks to like this channel's community too, of how you can experience things together. But just crazy that you can do that a decade later when most of the people have probably seen it, but it was just great and respectful. And then second, Hark said he didn't expect his boss to be, a fan. And it was hilarious when I posted a thing online, similar, like a cover photo, which had a gallery of a lot of things that, of the best scenes, etc. Today. And the first 2 people who reacted were this guy, Joe Frett and John Bennett, which I would not have expected as Buffy the Vampire people at all. Like, those are the first 2 people, so it does speak to its, sort of surprisingly widespread appeal. And then the third thing, based on what Hark said about the pilot, is, given limited time constraints, it makes sense to a degree to, if you don't like something based on a pilot, or after a few episodes, to just move on, because a million great things, and it's a lot of times you do get a taste early on. But I've been surprised the number of times, and Buffy is just the first of, one of several. Go back to even the West Wing, The Wire, and I could go through various other shows, but like where I'm surprised how much I get, even Game of Thrones, like it take to while for me to get hooked. But then when I've gone back and seen the pilots of them, I'm like, oh, this is great. And similar to Buffy, when I saw the pilot, I was like, oh, okay. And then I guess around season 2 and 3, when I was like, the Memento pinball machine between, front and back, when I went back and watched the pilot, I was like, oh, they really lay this out well. So, you can be rewarded. Once you really get hooked, then, the stuff can land better. And I'm glad I, gave it a chance. So, yeah.
Cool. So how do you want to...
Okay, well, the thing I was thinking, my initial thought was sort of general impressions, and then get out of the way of the bad stuff for the things that we just really were frustrated by, and then revel in a lot of good stuff. But at this point, I guess since we've gone in, I just didn't want to start and be like, this annoyed me, that annoyed me, did it annoy you? So, but if you have general impressions or reasons you like the show, maybe you can share that if you want, and then yeah.
I mean, if you want me to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing that appealed to me is for the most part, I just love the writing. I thought that Joss Whedon, the dialogue, for the most part, was very witty. I loved the comedic timing. I loved, Buffy, Sarah Michelle Gellar, I really enjoyed the way that she played Buffy's character. Because I've always been a fan of female heroines and, really strong female characters that kick butt and opens up cans and takes names, and Buffy, I don't know, I just felt like Buffy was a character who just did it very well because she was strong, but she definitely had her vulnerabilities. She wasn't perfect, and then there were moments when you just really wanted her to just completely smack people down, and just wipe the floor with them. It was just so very satisfying. And so there were a number of favorite episodes that I had that were not necessarily in the top 10 list, but really struck me a lot because Buffy also has a lot of very emotional scenes that got to me. So for example, one of my personal favorites was the prom, because I love the ending of the prom, because you're so used to these type of shows where the hero has to be undercover. There's all of these things that the hero saves the day and nobody seems to notice. The hero never gets thanked, and for the most part that's the point, because the hero doesn't do it for recognition. They don't do it to be thanked and to be. So it was a really cool thing, because I never saw another show previous to that do this, where they had this really awesome moment where the entire school or the class actually recognized her, and it just made it so good that she was, I felt it deep in my chest, that moment when she realizes people do care what I do, and not only that, people are positively affected by what she does. And she already knew that, but I just really appreciated that the school was able to do that for her, because I think it really boosted her as a person and as character. And it also didn't hurt that the person who was presenting the award with Jonathan, and Colin knows about my soft spot for Jonathan, because another episode that I really loved was, I think, Earshot, I think was the name.
Yeah, that's the name of it.
Earshot, which was a very serious subject of somebody who might have started a school shooting at Sunnydale High, which of course is a horrific thing that does happen in real life, but I really liked how they handled that. And I always enjoyed Danny Strong's, Jonathan's character a lot, and so those were amazing moments for his character, who isn't really a regular, but a side character who shows up a few times in the series. So yeah, so just overall, it's just a really fun super heroine movie with a great supporting cast and great writing that has the perfect balance of comedy and drama and emotions and just fun, kick butt themes. How about you?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm not gonna bother going through general impressions, because I have so many individual things that I'm sure it'll come out through that. But just on one or two things you said, I had another thing, but I'll just dive. Okay, so I think your central dissatisfaction that you talked about also connected to was Jonathan and what they did with him later, which will I think I just realized the other thing that I had. So before I get it, we transition into frustrations, and then hopefully back to a lot of other good things. What you said about the prom scene, and how the whole school came together. It continued through in Graduation Day, which was just an amazing episode, or 2 episodes, both part 1. I mean, part 1 with Faith was really compelling, and but the reason why I was struck by Graduation Day when you talked, when you reminded me of it, is because for me, and I guess this is general impression-y, but like the thing that I guess I knew most about Buffy, and you mentioned and John Bennett mentioned, is the dialogue, and the dialogue can be really good, like. Definitely. But one, I think, just a PSA, if you've never heard of Justified and you like dialogue, I will say, bar none, Justified to me is the best dialogue of any show I've ever seen, and you can Google it, and lots of other showrunners who've seen it said that. So the dialogue was still good, but like I don't think it was the best I've ever seen. But the thing I was surprised about was how many arcs had genuine emotional weight, and even though some of the sort of barriers or the reasons that Buffy was a forerunner of various things on TV, now we already have those as in our TV now. But even knowing that, oh wow, that back then I could see that was a really groundbreaking thing. So that was cool. But the biggest thing that I was impressed by is the standalone episodes. So I'm sure we'll get into them individually later, but I mean, I said, like, if I'm sure eventually I will see better episode of TV than Hush and Once More with Feeling and The Body, but I think it's going to take at least a few months. And so, but I knew those were great going in, and I was utterly floored by them, especially The Body, like, in the moment. But the reason this came up is because Graduation Day is not that at all. Becoming Part 2 is not that.
Graduation Day was my personal favorite finale of all of the season finales, including the series finale. I actually enjoyed personally enjoyed Graduation Day Part 2 more than any other season finale.
Yeah, so my point was that it doesn't just do standalone well, it can do, serialized well and have it pay off in spades, times. So. Okay, so your issue, well, why don't you quickly, or whatever speed you want, your issue with Jonathan, what they did, and then I can get into, it can be Anya time.
Yeah, I mean, well, Jonathan wasn't my biggest issue in the entire series. I have bigger ones. Okay. But I think you know some of my bigger ones.
Well, I know. I know the canon.
But Jonathan is. Go ahead.
No. I know the Spike can of worms, but Spike Buffy. But yeah, keep going.
So like I said, I really love Jonathan. I guess just in general, when I'm watching a show, my biggest frustration is when characters develop and grow, and then they regress, because the plot demands them to regress so that they could tell whatever story you're trying to tell, and it's. I think that one recent show that is notorious for this is Glee, because I do enjoy Glee a lot, but it frustrates me to no end when, for example, Quinn gets this amazing story arc where she finally starts to be more than just the blonde cheerleader that thinks she's all that in a bag of chips and is better than everyone, and she grows and learns, and then she goes back to being almost what she was at the very beginning of the series, and then she does kind of this back and forth, and that annoys me to no end, and so I felt that they did that with Jonathan's character, because he seemed to have this beautiful arc, this beautiful character growth, only to sort of pull him back because the plot somehow needed him to, and then ultimately his final end in the show just stung too much, and I got legitimately very frustrated. So it was, in my opinion, one of the top 3 biggest things that I disagreed with Joss Whedon or whoever wrote those storylines. It was one of my biggest disagreements with it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have as much emotional connection to Jonathan, so it didn't matter to me, although I didn't, the oh my god, what are they called? The trio, the trio, before they became Andrew, I was,
Tom Lang.
It was a waste. But interesting. No, I agree largely with what you said. But I'm fine with characters devolving as long as it makes sense and it can be a realistic portrayal of how people are. And I would say actually Buffy, for example, although believe me, season 6 is far from perfect and can be forced in certain ways, as I'll mention. But like Buffy, like if that would be considered evolving in season 6, I think it makes sense and is compelling because her making bad choices and you know, losing her leadership ability and just a lot of different things. I think that's consistent with the things she's gone through with that period of life. So it didn't make it not painful, but I'm fine with it. I'm fine with pain. I just want it to feel earned. When it is not earned is Anya and Xander breaking up for like, okay, so cards on the table. For a very long time, Anya unexpectedly was number one for me, which because she didn't necessarily have the depth in terms of, she certainly didn't have a lot of like story arcs that she was going through or like a lot of like meaty plot point time, but she and the actress and Emma Caulfield were so compelling and so hilarious, and but not just like the body, her speech in the body, there's other parts too, but just the way in which she was able to encapsulate these strengths of Buffy, that is the moving emotion and the dialogue and the timing and everything. She was certainly for me until seasons 4, 5, and 6 the best part. She was just, you know, the most consistent and great. And coupled along with that, as an unintentional pun, her and Xander was wonderful. And I do think that I don't think that people just should stay together or like, I don't think that, like, I can see breaking people up and moving them in and out and having them like Spike and, well, it's more complicated, but like Spike and Buffy and Angel and Buffy, there is fractures, there is a back and forth, and they could have done that in an organic way. But the way they shoehorned in the wedding episode, Xander's like drunk dad, and I know they talked about him for a while, but it was just so cartoonish and not earned. And then they just sort of were like, all right, we'll like wait for a while until we can get them together in the finale. Except then Anya just died, like on the side, like as a footnote. And then Hark said that, well, Joss Whedon like said that it was because the casualties of war. But I didn't actually see it in the DVD commentary, but like whatever. He also said like, you know, you need to. There was a lot of explanations, but the bottom line is, even in the DVD commentary, they didn't even really try. They talked about how, they were made for each other, and although they didn't, you know, make it in the end, you know, she had a great sacrifice. I'm like, not a great sacrifice. She had a footnote. A footnote is not a sacrifice. So I think that actually takes care of my thing. As you can see, my animation. I'm almost all happy from here, but dude.
I was upset too about Anya and Xander because, as Colin told me this before, is that the reason why they ended up breaking up at the altar, we felt was forced. You thought it was forced. That
we're not alone.
Yes, you're not alone. We thought it was a bit forced. I know that Colin very much throughout, since they broke up, was hoping, oh, they got to get back together. I'm sure they're going to get back together. And of course, I'm not spoiling anything for him.
Hark was so good, by the way.
I wasn't saying
He's
anything.
The best non-spoiler person. He was probably dying inside every time, like, well, they'll be back in the end, because that's what it was leaning towards.
Well, hopefully my viewers believe that too, that I'm not a very spoilerish person. So I felt very bad internally, obviously, because I when I was first watching the series, I was him thinking, oh, I'm sure they're going to get back because they have to get back together. And then when they didn't, I also thought that was a bit of a waste. And the way that she died was not. You said it better, I think, than I could. Like, you don't need it to be happy, you just need it to be meaningful. You don't need the happiness. You don't need the ending to be happy. You just need to be meaningful, or something along those lines.
Correct.
Like, he just needs to have meaning, and I agree.
Kill Anya, kill Xander, have them both in each other's arms, but not in a cliched way. I know you're capable of it,
but make it meaningful.
Why did you not do? Well, yeah.
Yeah. Right. But the other thing, since we're talking about couples, so one of the biggest Now, to be fair, this was not. I don't think this was because of Joss Whedon's decision. It was just because of the circumstances. So this is. I don't fault anyone for this because. So one of my biggest like frustrations with the show that isn't really anyone's fault is Seth Green leaving, because I love Team Willow and Oz. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I think it was really awesome that Willow eventually became one of the earliest, like, gay characters to actually have a gay relationship, a same-gender female relationship in a TV series during that time. And I recognize that that was, very important just for historical reasons. Totally get that. However, if I was looking at it from a vacuum, I just thought that Willow and Oz were just perfect together, in my opinion. And Seth Green and Willow just had this amazing chemistry, and they had amazing like couple growth. And then when they ended up breaking up, it really destroyed me, and I don't think I ever recovered, because Willow ended up finding Tara, and again, it's maybe because I'm biased, but I just never was sold on the Tara Willow relationship. Mm-hmm. Like, I just didn't feel the same chemistry. I just didn't feel like they fit as well as Willow and Oz fit. And then when Tara left, mm-hmm. I mean, Kennedy, I actually like Willow and Kennedy decently. I actually like them together, and I actually like them way more than Willow and Tara. So again, my apologies for any of you who love Willow and Tara. I get it. I understand. I understand it, but I'm still very much like, in my head, it's Willow and Oz all the way. And again, I can't fault Joss Whedon for that, because that was just the circumstances of Seth Green was just, becoming really big, especially after Austin Powers, and he just was doing movies, and so he couldn't really commit to the show. But I was happy that he came back a few times afterwards, even on Angel. So I mean, I'd like to think it's not just because I always had a soft spot crush for Seth Green, because he's a ginger. So he's a ginger. So, but so initially, I think, and it's hard because I know so many people love the Tara Willow relationship, and I actually
get it.
I
did. Okay, so initially, and I do think, I'll just say that for the first few episodes and Tara with the acting, and I remember saying that it was like the floating plastic bag in American Beauty had more charisma. Like, it was just really, it was rough with the line readings, but I will say that it did start to shift. I still don't think like the acting was amazing from Amber, but I will, but start around the time of the actually really good underrated episode, I thought, when Tara's family came, and certainly the body, which I just keep saying it's unbelievable, mm-hmm. And the way that they were able to have just completely, you can feel them coming together, and it was an absolute reason why standards and practices or the censoring thing would have been silly, because at the time that was like scandalous or whatever, but it just showed how crazy that sort of thing being scandalous was, because it's like it's about humans needing each other and finding love from each other, not about lesbianism or whatever. And to its immense credit, at almost no time, well, maybe with Tom Lank, but they at least with the lesbian aspects of it did not make it a after school special thing. They made it just like any other relationship for the most part. And so and then Tara really did start to develop too in season 6, which when she would come back and she was sort of independent of Willow storylines and she was like helping Buffy console herself. Like Tara really developed for me.
That's true.
And Kennedy, and I don't want to spend any more because I don't want to spend any more time on negativity than I need to. But like,
that is interesting. That I think I also agree that I enjoyed Tara when she was not attached to Willow. I like Tara on her own, not as Tara and Willow. I like Tara by herself for some reason. I just felt that she was a more compelling character on her own than as a couple with Willow.
And I don't want to spend any more time on it because I've spent the past few weeks on aspects of season 7, which I'm like, all right, but I was like, I was lukewarm about the potentials. Like they were, I never thought of this now, but they're literally what they're described as. They're a potential. They're a idea of a storyline that, I mean, if you can, well, you haven't seen it in a while, but like if people can rattle off the names of the potentials or the personalities of the potentials, other than Kennedy and
Rhoda and
Rhoda,
the black one. I think Rhoda was the black one. I can name a few of them, or at least I was able back in the day, because I actually liked the potentials, because I thought that they were fresh, and yeah, you didn't meet all of them obviously because there were too many, but there was like a handful of like 5 that you saw regularly, and those five, I like them. I grew attached to them enough. Like I was upset when. Again, it's been too long, so I don't remember the D&D one. The one at the very end that was playing.
Yeah, they're playing. It was on Freaks and Geeks. Which, by the way, Freaks and Geeks.
She was one of the first potentials that they recruited, I think. And I know that Joss Whedon said that she got to have that D&D scene with them specifically because she was going to die. So they wanted to have like a last-minute scene with her just to get a little bit of extra attachment so that they can kill her off.
Then
properly.
They should have put her in the opening credits.
Yeah,
that's what they did for Tara.
Yeah, that's what they did for Tara. So, I actually like them personally, but I understand why you didn't. Really
which, by the way, for the people who really, really love Tara, and I was upset, honestly, they never put her in the credits when they were putting like Riley and then like all these people in the credits. I found out that, well, I don't know if this would help those people or hurt them, but she really, really liked the show, but she didn't want it. She was afraid of not being able to, like, if she got other jobs, she was afraid of not being able to have enough time. So she never really wanted to commit to having her name in the credits. So it wasn't a thing where they were disrespecting her. So that's just a little fact of many people that helped that. So,
I did not know that. Interesting.
Many, many positive things too. What did you like?
The positive things?
Yeah. Or not about Tara, just anything.
I wasn't done talking about negative
things.
What's
your big one? Things. I don't know if you went to your big one.
No, I think Oz was my big one, which, again, to be fair, is nobody's fault. But I think the last major thing, which is more up in the air, because I haven't read all of the graphic novels, I haven't read all the graphic novels, and I know that this is a subject of contention amongst fans, and I totally get the other side, and Colin and I are both on opposite sides of this fence. Yeah. I am very much on Team Angel. He is very much on Team Spike in terms of Buffy romantically involved with Angel versus Buffy being romantically involved with Spike. So I get the appeal of Spike, and I explained this to Colin. I don't dislike Spike at all. I actually love Spike as a character. I really, really love Spike as a character because he's just well written and he's just funny, and James Marsters just does a fantastic job in that role. So it has nothing to do with Spike as a character. I just ultimately, personally feel that my true OTP, one true pairing, is Buffy and Angel, and I think honestly a lot of it is because I have a tendency to have a soft spot for the original people that characters tend to date, as long as it seemed like a healthy enough relationship. And I don't know, I guess when Spike and Buffy started getting together, same thing as like with Tara and Willow for me, I just didn't buy it as much. But Colin very much loves Spike and Buffy together. Yeah,
I mean, I want to sort of put out some sort of disclaimer so it doesn't seem like I'm some sort of, I don't know, drinking Kool-Aid or something and not being able to be objective about it. But, like, that is to say, like, okay, like, early on in season 7 when Spike is, like, keeps getting somewhat tortured and he's in the basement forever, and that part could be a little bit repetitive. I'm grasping at straws, though, because I think, and it's, well, only reason Anya was tied for me as the best character was because she was like a more what's the word? A more dynamic Tom Lanker Andrew, in that she bats like close to 100%. That's not a batting average. I don't know, close to 1. Like, every time she did everything. And so did Tom Lank. And but I mean, it's hard to rank them like as the top when they're, but they weren't totally limited, because Tom Lank in the Storyteller episode got a great ending. And Anya had Selfless, by the way. Selfless is the most underrated episode of Buffy. It's written by Drew Goddard. Actually, I think his first ever episode out of the gate. And it was unbelievable. And it's not coincidental, the only Anya-centric episode in the series. But, like, Anya ultimately, and Andrew ultimately, on a lower level, does not have the sort of series-long just clobbering it out of the charisma park that Spike had. Because, to me, he's able to go through so many iterations and so many changes, but virtually all of them either feel like convincing or, well, I'm on board to try something, and it doesn't feel like them trying out a new girlfriend for Willow, or not Tara, but like Kennedy fits that for me, like, or or having Buffy, everyone tell Buffy you must leave the house because you're terrible as a leader, because we need you to come back like the next episode. Like, none of those changes or dramatic shifts in Spike felt anything other than interesting and exploring different sides. Now, arguably, the rape episode, which is, that's a thing, and that is unsettling, not just because of, obviously, the subject matter, but as a character-based thing, and I'm sure there's been, essay upon essay written in it, and honestly, I don't know if I know I am not the person to speak best to the significance of that, and whether, but, and actually, so I'm not going to even get into that right now, but I'll just say, initially, that I think that, number one, his character changes were compelling and convincing, but also to speak to the romance aspect of it. What you said, I think, was great, because you gave me the reasons why I could see someone saying that Angel was better, or Angel and Buffy were better, because at first I was going to be like, how? Because part of what makes Spike so great is his gradual and many-faceted commitment to Buffy. So how can that be separated? But the reasons you gave for Angel is because you prefer the beginning people, and I think you didn't say this, but I don't know if you'd agree with this, but, like, you tend to, like, I don't know. Sometimes, would you say overall you would, if someone does something unlikable, between the two of us, if a character did something unlikable, would you say on the whole you would be less likely to like that or appreciate that character? Would you say?
I mean, it depends, because Angel's done unlikable things as well. Now, granted, most of the time he did unlikable things was when he was Angelus, like he was his evil self. So, I guess in general, if a character does, there's very specific things, I guess, that makes a character likable to me. Yeah. And my viewers know that because they know how I react to specific characters in a video game. So they know that, definitely. So they can probably predict. I'd be very shocked if any viewer who has watched any of my videos would be shocked that I prefer Angel over Spike.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. And you go to the West Wing, like anyone who's like Donna, and not that Donna isn't a great person, but like
I
anyone who
definitely
had
favor
any more Donna and Charlie, anyone who was like Boy Scouty. Like,
well, right,
so,
exactly. I like the Boy Scouts, and my viewers know that. Whenever if I play a video game that I can romance, people know almost automatically which one I'm going to go after. Like it's going to be either the Boy Scout or the Ginger or some combination of Boy Scout and Ginger, basically.
And I was holding back because I didn't want to be offensive, but I'm like, and to me, I generally don't, but I think part of what, I mean, this is not saying anything that I don't think is any grand news, but Spike wasn't just like, he's bad. Like,
he wasn't.
No, I'm not
he
saying
wasn't.
you are. I'm just saying, like, part of it. I
liked him as a character.
As a villain in the beginning.
Yeah.
Immediately, because I went and saw the first episode, because that was when I was pinging back and forth, and like I was like, oh my god, from the beginning, he's just like completely like charisma. And then when he was like spent like a half to full season as like. Someone to beat in like a comic relief he was, and then when he became like a emotional romantic head case, and then when he became like
well, I mean, there are characters in other shows that have done that. So Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead is a very good example, because I could not stand Daryl Dixon during season 1, and I think many people didn't particularly care for Daryl Dixon in season 1, but then as season 2 went on, I and many people started warming up to him, and by season 3, people were like in love with Daryl, just like myself. So like in that case, I was still able to appreciate his character, even though he had done some terrible things. Versus you, and your feelings towards Negan, because Negan did some really awful things, and he's actually starting to grow a new leaf. Do I think you would be sold on Negan at this point? I have no idea. I don't know. Am I sold on Negan at this point? Not really. I mean, I like him more than I did before, but do I prefer seeing other characters on like in a scene than Negan? Yes, I do. But anyway, go ahead.
I was just thinking, all right, like checking off specific episodes. So one of the first moment for me where I thought it was interesting, which I guess that's literally what I started at, because that was the first episode, but I love the surprise innocence two-parter in season 2 where Buffy and Angel like have sex for the first time, and it's very exciting and fulfilling, and it was our first real intro into Joss Whedon and his sometimes exploitative, in my opinion, just digging the knife in, but sometimes it can be beneficial and feel earned when he did that. And in this case, I think it was, because they had, Buffy did things, that you didn't necessarily see, like with Jonathan, you were talking about the prom. Like, if you had a romance, they're going to go on, they're going to go off, they're going to fight, but you're not usually going to have the moment where they have their ultimate consummation, and then the next moment, and for me, a plot appropriate way, him to not say, you're the worst, you're no, that's bad dialogue, but like, I don't even want to, like, he did, the way that he, like, Angelus, like, lacerated her by saying, oh yeah, I love you too, as he was leaving the apartment. And I don't know if you remember that part, but it was amazing, because he was able to just sort of, through like positive language but just cruel tone, just make that shift so gutting. So yeah, that was the first thing, and then becoming those two-parter was really good, and then I guess we covered a bunch of it with Graduation Day, and then the Hush. Oh man,
Hush is of course wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
And I think the thing that Hush is held back a tiniest bit for me, just because it takes a good, or at least a decent bit of the episode as setup, and like standard we're doing Buffy stuff. Actually, that's not fair. It's just the beginning, and I expected it to be like all silent from the beginning, and so. But that's not the episode's fault. But one of the things of the episode that I love. I mean, obviously the lecture hall scene when they're on when Giles is on the web.
Yeah, I love that part.
It's just kind of like brilliant. And Buffy, for all of its incredible depth and great characters, it didn't necessarily have like the villains weren't necessarily the strengths, or certainly the standalone monster, the weakish villains weren't. I mean, they didn't really stand up, but the gentlemen did. And the gentlemen were
wonderful villains, really awesome villains. Yes,
just the visual and like even the little girl in the beginning having the setup of that like sort of mythological element, and
not only did they appear crazy creepy, but just the sheer like there's just something compoundedly more terrifying when you think about how their operandus,
their MO, their modus operandi.
Their modus operandi. There's just something terrifying about knowing that you're being attacked and essentially bled to death by these people, and you cannot make a sound. You cannot even scream. Like, to me, that is just...
And I love, and I'm gonna mess up the detail, but I love the misdirect when you think that they're coming in and stabbing. I think it is Tara in the room, but then it's somebody else.
Yeah, that was a very cool misdirect. I like that.
Yeah, and then the end of the episode, it reminded me a little bit of Memento, where not in the sense that I was talking about the structure, but just in the similar like viewer experience that when I saw the end of that episode with my dad a million years ago. And it sort of cuts to black on like a line that says, "Now, where was I?" And when you recognize the cleverness and how that line and the implication of it sort of resonates throughout the whole thing. And so I could sort of tell where it was going when Riley and Buffy are on the bed. I could see that they were sort of hinting at it, but I didn't fully register it. And then when all of a sudden they get back to being able to talk and everything like that, and they're like, they was hushed and silent. I'm like, that
was very good.
That was great.
I guess other episodes that we haven't mentioned already.
Well, why don't we do... Well, just because...
Go ahead.
And we are controversial, but controversially united, because often sometimes we're just like, disagree on the things, but unlike the other standalone episodes, which I think took... they had immense ambition and execution. For me, and Hark as well, oh my god, not... Selfless, Restless. The dream episode was, I'll just say, I appreciated that it was going so boldly, and there were a few things that registered, certainly in retrospect when I read stuff about it, but it did not work for me on an emotional level, and it felt like it was like, trying to be all special. I
think that it was an episode that, like, the average person, I feel like the average person would not get, and it would just go over your head. And I guess the only way you could really appreciate 100% is if you, like, dove into the internets and, like, looked at other people's synopses and analysis of it. And maybe that was the whole point, is that they wanted to give us an episode that allowed the fans to just pick at it and try to analyze what it all means. But I feel like that's not necessarily what the average viewer wants to do. Like, the average viewer is not interested in, like, necessarily researching. I think it's only for the really, really, truly hardcore fans who truly care. So I guess my problem is, if it requires you to do that much extra effort to really get and understand the episode, I feel like it's not ideal. Because I didn't particularly care for it.
Yeah, and really I don't actually think that you need it, like, especially if you're doing a, like, bold... Okay, like, I don't think you need to cater... Certainly, if you're going to do a one-off, I do not think you need to cater to the quote-unquote average viewer. And like, for example, one that I think worked actually better for Hark, and I appreciated and thought that oh God, I'm forgetting the name of it, but the like Buffy's alternate universe in the hospital in the midst of all the other terror and chaos of season 6. Like,
I like that one a lot.
For me, because it was coming after everything, and I just didn't,
that one.
Like, it didn't fully just work for me, but that's my fault.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that I don't need, like, if some viewer came in, they'd be like, what are you talking? I have no clue. And I'd be like, well, then watch the show, okay? Like, we're not trying to cater to you. But, like, yeah, just for me, the other thing felt like a sort of exercise in style. Some of which, like, I like Spike and Giles, like, on the what do you call it? On their swings. That was so eerie. But it just, when there's so many other more, you know, and even the Xander, in retrospect, the Xander peeing thing was actually, I thought was good, and it fit his character and everything. But yeah, anyway, I want to move on from that just because there's so many other good ones. But you want to talk about what you loved about the hospital, or the ending of that crazy hospital alternate reality episode?
You mean with where she was in the asylum? No, I mean, I just thought, I felt it was really creepy in a good way, where you basically left that episode wondering, like, what actually is real. Like, is she actually in a mental hospital? Is she actually in a mental hospital, and this entire series is a figment of her imagination? Or, you know, is she really Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and, you know, it's the asylum that's fake? And I like how it had that, like, Memento ending thing, because the ending of Memento was meant to be ambiguous and allowed you the opportunity to interpret it however you wanted to interpret it. And I felt that episode ended in a very similar fashion. Let you interpret it the way you want to interpret it. So that was one of the reasons I thought that episode's really cool. But other episodes that I really liked, which we haven't mentioned yet, is The Wish. I think that's a big one. The Wish, where you got to see the alternate reality. And it was just really cool seeing
Anya's debut, by the way.
Anya's debut, yeah.
Before I knew her.
But it was really, it was really cool just to see certain characters just be turned upside down. Like watching Evil Willow, which was a foreshadowing of Dark Willow later on, many years later. But watching Vampire Willow was especially, like, entertaining. I'm sure it's Allison Hannigan, right? Allison Hannigan, I'm sure, must have had a blast doing that. And it was really cool seeing Vampire Willow again, another season. I think this following season, she reprised her role as that, and even gave the infamous line, "I think I'm kind of gay." Like, at that point, was supposedly foreshadowing, you know, her sexuality. But others that are not in the top 10 that I enjoyed.
Oh, so just so I don't get the other factoid you didn't know, but you're like, ooh. I just literally read a few minutes ago, Xander was originally going to be gay and not Willow.
I would have loved that, actually.
Yeah,
I would have loved Xander to be gay.
It was a toss up, and then but sorry.
Why was that? Was it? I'm wondering if Brendan would have been okay with it. He was all aboard with that. That would have been cool.
Yeah, who's? Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't know that. That's kind of interesting. I'm wondering, or Nicholas? I thought it was Brendan.
His last name is Brendan.
Nicholas Brendan. Yeah, that's why I got it mixed up. Yeah. So I'm wondering who he would have been paired with, but maybe Spike. But the other episodes that I thought that were not in the top 10 that I really enjoyed was the Halloween episode, because that was just fun. And, like, there was a lot of comedy in there too, like Willow being a ghost, and then she literally became a ghost, and of course Buffy being the damsel in distress. And I liked just the continuity of that, because that's where Xander got his whole soldier thing, which gets referenced several times throughout the season, even in the final episode of season 7. You know, Xander's knowledge of military stuff was referenced a few times. So, and then again, because I have a soft spot for Oz, like, I liked, you know, one of the original episodes where Oz first becomes a werewolf. That was just something that I really enjoyed, just because it was central to Seth Green's character. So, I'm just trying to think what else.
I was gonna say, Xander's moment that, or just because we haven't talked about Dawn for most of the we haven't talked about Dawn for most of the episode, or just like you know, most of the series, and to some extent, the less said, the better. But like, she definitely got to a degree better, and certainly the acting ability was
Michelle
was
Trachtenberg,
completely on point for the seventh, and like you know, but one maybe my favorite, and this maybe speaks to the sort of, I don't know, limited nature of the character, but in my opinion, but I love, this is way late, but when Dawn or Xander says to Dawn, well, people expect Dawn to actually be the next Slayer, and I will give Joss Whedon credit for trying to flip the script and sort of leading to that, thinking that Dawn was going to be one of the next Slayers, and she wasn't.
She wasn't.
But Xander has this great, unexpected speech to Dawn, and basically, like, you know, you're not going to be the Slayer. I mean, I'm not the Slayer, like, but it's just the breaks, like, but we matter. Like, we, you know, and it was done much more poetically than I just said, but, like, that was really moving for me. So.
And then speaking of Xander, obviously another favorite of many people is the entire Dark Willow, like, section, which is, in my opinion, the only section that for me was memorable from that season. The trio season.
Well, there's once more with feeling. But
well, okay, sorry, there was once more with the feeling as well. But yeah, that definitely for me, and I think for many other people, that whole section overshadowed at least the whole trio thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I wasn't, you know, I loved Jonathan, but again, I was very sour about how they kind of turned him into a villain, even though he was the least of the villains of the three. Mm-hmm. And then Warren just kind of came out of nowhere for me, and I know why, because they were trying to get the actor who played Warren's brother. They were trying to bring the brother back, but they couldn't get them, so they had Warren instead. Mm-hmm. And then they brought in Andrew, Tom Lenk, who at the time I was like, take him or leave him. But then Andrew, as a character, really held on to his own and became his own in the seventh season, and became one of my favorites. Just like for you, one of your favorites. And I told you that too. I said you're
and you're like,
Andrew.
I'm like, really?
He gets better.
Really?
Andrew gets better.
Oh
yes.
man,
He did get better.
The saving grace, because literally after not to go back to the Anya bitterness, but like after we watched it, and I said, Hark, we're going to watch the end scene in Selfless, which is just a masterful episode, and I would dare say, because Drew Goddard went on to do Cabin in the Woods and Lost and many other things, and he's very talented, but like it just blew out of the park. But it features. That was, I think, Anya's best moment, and the flashbacks and everything was hilarious. But I love another thing that I would have gone back to sort of take away the pain of the Anya moment at the end was Anya and Andrew, who are like the comedy / unexpected at times dramatic MVPs of the later seasons for me. They have their own little sort of speech dialogue that's emotional and funny and deep or whatever. But then they're like, we should play wheelchair, I'm gonna get it wrong, we should play like wheelchair wrestling or something, and they go smashing at each other, and then the outtakes and the like thing there, you could see them more like what do you call it, outtakes from it. So that was such a, you know, and in the similar vein of like underrated or whatever comic, this is just almost purely comic, but Tabula Rasa, the episode where they all like lose their entire memories, and so Giles and Anya are like a couple, and then they all, they're like, the door was like vampires, and they all freak out. It was, and I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect it, and it was just fun. It was fun. Hilarious.
Other ones that I enjoyed that we haven't mentioned yet. Like Faith, I really like Faith as a character. Like when she, what's the actor's name? I forgot.
Eliza
Dushku. Yes, that's right. Her, love her. Like beautiful actor, beautiful like talent. Just gives a whole new side of the same coin, like the whole new side of the Slayer coin compared to Buffy, and kind of relating to that. Prior to Faith, I actually really liked at least the concept of Kendra I don't know if you got to see a lot of Kendra
she's only in 3 episodes.
She's only in 3 episodes, but when I first was watching the series, like, she was just really cool because it's like, oh my gosh, there's another Slayer. Like, there's 2 Slayers, and of course, this is pre-Faith, but, like, for the few episodes that Kendra was there, I just thought it was really neat, and was really sad that she, like, died so quickly after she was introduced.
Yeah,
So.
and for Faith, I will agree with all you're saying. Just add little examples for Faith. I thought, as much as I had issues with certain things in the 7th season or whatever, and being lackluster, I thought her coming back, except for like when they all, but even when they all kicked Buffy out in this forced way, even she was like, oh, I'm trying to take over. She was actually interestingly nuanced in that whole section,
right?
And she was like being herself, but like also like in her somewhat domineering self, but like also being like, no, I'm just trying to like do its best. And then when she was leader, she was trying to like play like, well, the girls should do what they want, but then she's like, oh, maybe they shouldn't. Like her whole thing, and her own. Oh, the principal, the last principal, D.B. Woodhouse from 24 and other things. I thought he was great, and in the sense that I'm sometimes critical of like characters when they come in randomly and it's hard, but he throughout the season,
Robin,
and in my favorite episode of tied with Selfless of season 7, the lies the parents told me, with his sort of dance amid the circular stakes. If none has seen the show The Americans, it's an amazing show.
That's for the crosses.
Yeah, the crosses, and it compares to just the complexity and intensity and like divided loyalties that Spike and he and Buffy and Giles, all of them, and both the mothers, Spike and his mother, and Robin, the principal, and his mother. It was just so gripping and sophisticated. Yeah. And so I forgot why that. Oh well. He was okay. So Faith. I was also okay with Faith and him and the principal ending up. Or having their little thing, which seemed forced initially, but like I thought it worked really well. I thought
it worked. We didn't mention her as much, except tangentially, but I really loved Christine Sutherland, Buffy's mother, a lot.
I think it's Sunderland.
Sunderland?
That's my bad, yeah. It's definitely
Sunderland.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No worries.
There were a few episodes where she was showcased a lot more, like obviously the candy one where she and Giles end up together is one, and then of course when Buffy ends up coming out to her mom, she's like, have you tried not being a Slayer? Like that was great.
Her and Spike too, they were great.
Yeah, like Buffy's mom and Spike had some great scenes together, very very cool scenes together. So
it's funny we haven't even said once more with feeling, but mostly it's just, it's like, I think to a large degree its greatest strength is just its form and the fact that it was able to nail it. I don't think it has a lot to necessarily discuss other than Tara, best vocals in it.
Yeah, Tara had the best vocals, yes.
But the way that it was able to hit story and visuals and direction and sound and everything and do it with such,
Yeah. And I could be wrong, but I believe that was the very first series that did a musical episode. I think they started the trend because I started seeing other shows that started doing musicals, like the Disney Channel's Even Stevens had a musical shortly after episode. Even more recently, I'm a big Once Upon a Time fan, so Once Upon a Time did a musical episode. Several shows that has done musical episodes, and so I thought it was kind of cool that I believe Buffy started that. So that was kind of neat.
And just a little tidbit for the poor Angel people who, I know there's a lot of people who love. Seen both Buffy and Angel.
David Boreanaz.
No, I think he was good at it. I like him. But no, because I didn't watch. But of the episodes of Angel that I watch is about maybe 8 or 9. The episode with, and I don't know if you saw it, but the episode with Faith, where she sort of first comes to grips with you know, not just trying to be bad all the time. And she's down like in this rain-soaked rage with Angel. It was really compelling.
Since you mentioned the series Angel, like one character that we haven't really spoken much about, but I think we should, is Cordelia Chase. Because I mean, obviously, you're not meant to really like her at the beginning, but then when she starts joining the Scooby Gang, I think she starts really becoming a lot more likable, and you appreciate her character more. And I think one of the reasons why I enjoyed Angel, I haven't actually seen all of the episodes of Angel yet. I think only seen the first season, if I remember correctly, or season and a half. But I really enjoyed Cordelia in that episode simply because it's shown really how much she has grown as a character. Because she's very likable in my opinion in that series versus when she was at least in season 1, at least. So, you know, and then at Charisma Carpenter again, like I don't know. I just think.
Oh yeah, her comic timing and,
right.
And
she's just great.
Skills. She was great.
Right. She's just great, and it's really interesting that she originally was, you know, going for the part of Buffy, and Sarah Michelle Gellar was originally going for the part of Cordelia. I don't remember. Did she start Buffy before or after the movie Cruel Intentions? I feel like Cruel Intentions came after season 1 of Buffy.
I think it's like 98, so Buffy, yeah. I'm pretty... Oh, I think
she did it after.
I think I'm actually right, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. Because I didn't quite put two and two together, because she definitely... Sarah Michelle Gellar's character in Cruel Intentions was definitely a character I loved to hate. I loved to hate her character a lot, and so it was kind of interesting seeing her in a different role where I just really loved Buffy. So,
and just not to hold up the Anya mantle for a final time, but I think, like, I cannot fault once Charisma Carpenter's comedic contributions to the first few seasons, but I feel like Anya was able to be like not just funny, but like grab the scene. Like it was whereas Charisma Carpenter's like, that was funny. Oh, that was good. And nice. You know, nice. And he's like, what is she doing? Like, that's funny. And like, you know, so. Yeah. And the final, I will, the one thing that I haven't mentioned except in passing, I mentioned a second, but what would you, and I don't want to forget, and I even to a small degree, the people, Hannah and Haley, who from the channel, who've also already said how much Buffy has meant to them. That was moving to me, and and so I wanted to give a little shout out, and also if you have anyone else who has their own experience or connects to any of the references or the points we had or whatever, I'm intrigued to see it in the chat.
Yes, please, if you guys are a fan, please comment down below. Tell us if there's anything that we talked about that resonated with you, if there's anything we didn't talk about, any topic or even an episode that we didn't mention that you think is of note and wanted to write it down, wanted to let us know about it. Please comment down below. I'm sure Colin will have a lot to say, especially for those, because he's better at those kind of things than I am. But yeah, but the thing that I've been holding, and I know people have literally said, like, various critics, like, the best Buffy episode, is it a Wednesday? Is it a Tuesday? It always changes for them. And so it's a matter of personal opinion, I guess, in various ways. But to me, the body is unbelievable. Like, I mean, it's everything that for me Restless was not. And, like, whereas Restless was style and boldness, but the body was using every artistic tool that is possible and using it to fuel a story and say something about human relations and life and death, and comedy and tragedy.
everything was just fueling that story. And I mean, like, the biggest moment was the Anya moment for me, not because it was funny, I mean, but because it was shatteringly true to life, because you'd had Xander, who's like in that trying to blame the hospital, and Willow and Tara trying to be reasonable and console each other, and then Anya doesn't have those capabilities, or she doesn't know humans, but she's been knowing humans and getting to care about them, not just their parts, and like, but it's just hard for her to handle, but everyone helps her through that. And then but there's like a scene when they're going to the hospital, but just the camera angles and the color, like the use of the color palette that they have in it, unlike when they use color palette in some like cool ways in Restless, but I'm like, okay, why? And it just enhanced it and made it more intense. And like the first 20 minutes were just shattering. But then the end, like, you know, like in the with the vampire that came in, but it ultimately wasn't about the vampire. Just like the show is never about the vampire. It's about the people, but that they were all there, mother, daughter, and daughter, sort of in this stark, silent whole thing, silent, and no sound cues. It was just mesmerizing.
If I had to pick a favorite, and again, I think this just shows that I may be like a simpler, less sophisticated viewer compared to Colin. The way I define favorite episode is it's an episode that I can never get tired watching over and over and over and over and over again. I applaud and certainly recognize and laud the body for what it is, because it is a great piece, but I cannot honestly say it's an episode I want to watch over and over and over and over again. It's really not. So I can't say that's my favorite. So I still say that my favorite episode, because it really is the episode that I actually have literally played over and over and over and over again, and I never seem to get tired, it is Graduation Day Part 2. Because it's just fun, and it just has almost all of the characters that I want in it. You know, Anya's still in there, Cordelia's still in there, Angel's still in there, Oz is still in there. The only character that isn't there is Spike. So, but everyone else is in there, plus Jonathan, plus all these other side characters, and, you know, and Faith. So it's like one of those moments where, like, if I could just freeze time and just keep my memory of Buffy, the show, in that one episode, that is where I would freeze it and just capture and remember it. So for me, it definitely is Graduation Day Part 2. And I think if I was forced to pick a second one, it's gonna be a toss up between Once More with Feeling and Hush, but I think I have to go with Hush ultimately, because I mean, I think a lot of it is just because now, for example, I've seen a bunch of musical episodes, so it's no longer new, but even today, like, I feel like Hush is still a very original concept. I'm sure there are probably other shows that has had a silent episode. I just don't know of them off the top of my head. So for me, the whole concept of a episode where there's almost zero dialogue in the entire episode is new enough that I have to say that's probably my second favorite.
Yeah, and you in the Graduation Day, and I remember you were moved at that time, and I'm glad it brought that up, because it would have felt sort of less complete without mentioning this aspect of it, of the watching it together and being able to share it. And so also, like, in the comments or whatever, if you had either through Buffy that you watched it with someone or whatever, or just other shows that is meaningful, that'd be cool to find out, because it absolutely added to it, being able to, you know, have those points of, and like what I couldn't watch in the body when, like, which, by the way, James Marsters, he wasn't even in it. He said his favorite. True. He says his favorite episode. Yeah. And Graduation Day Part 2 is also Anya's real debut, because technically she debuts like way earlier, but like that's the first time where I was like, this, because that's the episode where she's like, no, we're like together, Xander. Like, we're like gonna be like, you know, having sex and like together, and he's like, oh, like, okay. He's
Yeah.
like, she's like, wait, why are you pausing? Like, this is like, we're
Yeah.
couples. Like, don't you
Right,
get
right,
it?
right.
And I'm changing the dialogue,
Right,
but that's
right,
the
right,
thing.
right. That was-
and I was the
yeah.
first time I was like, who is this?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Colin.
Yes,
for
and thank you for
suggesting this.
and offering this and
Yeah.
this is great.
I'm sure the viewers appreciate seeing you. You know, your handsome face from time to time. My trophy husband. So yeah, thank you guys. Don't forget to comment about really anything about Buffy that you'd want. Hopefully you guys had fun and found some of the things that we said interesting. Maybe you even learned something, a thing or two. That's always great. So until then, everybody, love yourselves and love each other.
Bye.
Bye-bye.